Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that Brutus actually killed Caesar over a game of Battleship? It's true. Caesar's last words were, E2, Brute. Speaking of battleships, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Bismarck Solitaire from Worthington Games. Hello, everybody. We'll get back to the review in just a second. I just want to take a moment to ask you to go ahead and check out and subscribe to my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history and fun things like that. Please check that out. Please subscribe. And now, back to the review. In Bismarck Solitaire from Worthington, one player takes on the role of the task force commander as he guides the battleship Bismarck, the Prince Eugen, and a U-boat through the deadly waters of the North Atlantic in 1941. Essentially, your goal is to fulfill your specific mission, which sometimes includes convoy raiding or taking down enemy ships before being able to return to port. Meanwhile, the British fleet is sortied. It's hot on your tail, and you have to make sure that you can defeat them in battle or outrun them. Now, this is a book game. Essentially, it's just a book. There's no board, there's no cards, but you've just got this book. You yourself must supply 2 die, preferably a black and a white die, as well as a pencil. There are several different missions, and there's usually 3 mission boards, so you can do the same mission 3 times without erasing or what have you. But what you do is you write in the book. You essentially locate your where you're going to start here in the North Atlantic. Each mission has a map of the North Atlantic with grids, and each grid is divided into 4 squares, which are kind of movement zones. You can go ahead and you can write a B for Bismarck, P for Prince Eugen, and U for the U-boat. Now, after you've selected where you're going to start, the very first thing you do on your turn is you roll the die. Now, when you roll the event die, you're going to be looking at, of course, the white and the black die. Now, they correspond to different events that will happen on the opposite page from your map. So these events may say things like, British cruisers are attacking, or you may run into this battleship, or these warships, or there may be a bombing raid that affects your movement. There's all sorts of things that can happen depending on where you are, but you're going to search and see where exactly in the grid that event affects. If you are not in that grid, then nothing happens to you that round. But if you are in one of those grids, then you may have to do battle. At the bottom of the page is kind of your readout, kind of your places where it says exactly how healthy your ships are and how healthy the British ships are. You've got various little boxes that indicate strength points and your hull points. You've also got numbers indicating how many points that each of these ships are worth. You've also got points for your strength, how many die you're going to roll, as well as barrels, which represent extra movement. You can cross out a barrel to move an additional space. Most of the time, the Bismarck, I think, can move 2 spaces. The Prince Eugen can move 3, and I think the U-boat can just move 1, unless you use some of that reserve fuel to move an extra space. Now, if you find yourself fighting one or more of the British ships, essentially you have to do battle. Now, how battle works is Bismarck and the German ships always fire first. Now, if the U-boat is in the area, the U-boat can actually roll a die. Now, if it rolls a 1, 2, or 3, the U-boat gets a hit on your target. However, if you roll a 4, 5, or 6, then the U-boat takes damage. So it's kind of a 50-50 proposition whether or not you want to use the U-boat. Now, after the U-boat's fired, it's kind of out of the battle. Now it's just the surface ships. Now, the Germans, again, are going to roll first, so you're going to roll all the die from Bismarck, 3 die from Bismarck you're going to roll against the British ships. Then you're going to resolve that. Then you're going to roll for the Prince Eugen, which rolls 2 die, and see what happens. Now, essentially, all things being equal, a 1, 2, or 3 is a hit, and a 4, 5, or 6 is a miss. So you're going to go through, you're going to roll your die, see if you hit anything, and if you do score a hit, then you're going to tick off the strength boxes on the target ship. Now, the British, then, they are going to return fire. They're going to go ahead and they're going to roll all of their ships. Typically, their strongest ship is going to target Bismarck. If there's a second ship, it's going to target the Prince Eugen, and then all subsequent ships will also target the Bismarck. Now, at the end of a round of combat, if the Germans are stronger than the British are going to attempt to break off. They're going to attempt to escape. They're going to roll a die, and I believe if it's a 1, 2, or 3, I believe they get to escape. The battle's over, the event's done. But if they roll a 4, 5, or 6, they have to stay and endure more combat. Conversely, the player can choose at any time after a complete round of combat to try to break off. Now, if he does that, he rolls a die. Depending on what he rolls, he may get away scot-free, he may get away and take damage, or he may take damage and have to stay. Now, as I say, there's a lot of other kinds of events. There may be British bombers, maybe a cruiser attack, in which case you can kind of decide how you want to divide up any damage you take. There are some attacks that will just mean you lose your reserve fuel, so you can't go on any of those kind of extra movements. So there's all sorts of different things that can happen. There's different ships you're up against. Some are stronger than others. And you're going ahead, you're fighting them, or you're trying to evade them and move on. Now, after all combat, and again, that's air combat, U-boat combat, surface combat, after all combat, you go ahead and you can move your ships. That's when you move them to wherever you want them to be. And you might be looking for raiding. There are convoys out there, which are kind of easy pickings. So you're going to want to be looking at the event, seeing roughly where the convoys are located, moving your ships in that location toward that location so that you can get some of those easy victory points. But after you've gone ahead and you've moved, you go ahead and you tick off that turn, and then you roll the die in the next round for the next event. Typically, you're trying to fulfill specific mission objectives. Usually, this is scoring a number of victory points. It's going to come by sinking convoys or sinking warships or keeping your own ships alive. You're usually then going to want to try to get back to a port, like at Brest in France. And then if you can do that, if you can complete all those things, you may also qualify for a medal, depending on how well you've done. You can mark yourself as a medal in kind of a campaign log and see just how well you did. Now again, each space has three possibilities, three chances for you to go ahead. Each mission has three chances for you to play through it. But you go through, you play through the mission, you try to sink those enemy ships, gain victory points, and if you can gain enough victory points, then you win! Bismarck Solitaire. So Bismarck Solitaire is well, it's frankly unusual. I actually contacted the good people at Worthington, and they sent me a copy of this. I thought it looked I was very intrigued. I remember years ago, my friend Bob, I remember him telling me that he used to play these book solitaire games. This was 80s probably, 80s, 90s, early 90s. He said he'd play these book solitaire games. He mentioned one was like a World War I pilots, and then he mentioned one that was I think it was like duelists or something like that. And he said they were a lot of fun. And I was really intrigued when he said that. And so when I saw Worthington print these, I thought, oh, maybe that's kind of something similar. So I went ahead and I requested that Worthington send me this game. And of course it said you need some die, you need a pencil, and that's all you need. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, this could be really fun, or it could be a big nothing burger. So I sat down and I start playing it. You roll the die, you're fighting the ships, you're maneuvering around the map, and repeat. And it sounds pretty simple when you say it like that, but I got to tell you, friends, this is one of the most intense solitaire experiences I've ever had. The die rolls are, you know, essentially all 50-50. It's not a complex game. And so it astounds me just how much tension this game creates every single turn. Every single round, you're rolling that event die, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And sometimes nothing happens, and you actually kind of breathe a sigh of relief, but then you're thinking, but I got to do something. I gotta kill something here if I'm going to get the points I need. And then maybe you roll, and then some real weak ships show up, or you get those convoys. But then sometimes you get these British battleships that come after you, and those things are scary. And then those British air attacks come after you. This game, Bismarck Solitaire, is amazing. This is so much fun, and it is quick. You know, you play these games in 20 minutes. You know, it is a quick, intense game, and there is choice. There's choice in where you're moving your ships. There's choice during battles, which ships are you going to target. For what this game is, it packs a major punch. I just played it here a week or two ago. If I'd played this last year in 2021, it would have made my top 10 games of 2021. That's how much I like this game. Really, really liked it. I played it a ton so far. I will be playing it more. There's also the Waterloo Solitaire game. I got to get that now. I've got to pick that one up because that sounds awesome. A huge Napoleonic Wars guy, and I am super excited to see what that game is like as well. So this is an absolute no-brainer, and it is really, frankly, a delight to recommend. If you have not yet played this one, even if you're not really a solitaire wargamer or just a solitaire gamer, you still just might want to pick this one up because the games are so short, it's so easy to learn and so easy to play, and it is so much fun. Like I say, each turn is just packed with tension and theme, and I love it. I love this game. Bismarck Solitaire, highly recommend. Buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today for The Discriminating Gamer. As always, I ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. I'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please once again check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and fun things like that. I really would appreciate you checking that out and subscribing to it. Also, please give a thumb to this video on Board Game Geek. That helps us out a lot as well. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know which grid square in a game of Battleship is guaranteed to give you victory? I won.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Not too many people know this about Cody, but he grew up in very humble circumstances. His parents were too poor to afford board games. In fact, the only board game he could afford to play as a kid was Shoots.